Hey, 179, I think this is. I guess we'll just start it off with the president's been hospitalized for the COVID, and then they gave him a bunch of stuff. They gave him the immune plasma, which is booster cells from other people who've already had it. They gave him remdesivir, and they gave him dexamethasone, which is a steroid that's 25 times as powerful as hydrocortisone, um, and which gives between 5 and 18% of the people who take it uh, steroid psychosis. Um, and this afternoon, it's Sunday, we're doing this. He went on a field trip outside the hospital, just driving back and forth in front of, I don't know, about 5 dozen supporters, just and waving at them, which is a weird thing. And it's something that I wish I'd known I could do after I had my hemorrhoid surgery, that I could go drive past my supporters and wave at them.
All right. Well, I came and visited you in the
Yeah,
hospital.
you did. In fact, after I had my kidney tumor out, we did a whole our director came, you came, and we did a whole episode in the hospital.
I think it was our finest show because, there was a tearful kind of meeting. We both sort of, said our goodbyes. You almost died, so there was a lot of pathos.
Well, I didn't almost
Well
die, but
worth
you did
watching.
get to see my balls. I think you got to see my testicles for a second.
Well, the way we got around that on YouTube is that um, your testicles were filmed, but they look a lot like an undersea creature. So
Okay.
it might have been something else to the YouTube censors.
Okay.
So what else have you got, Rick?
Well, I mean, people are saying, Twitter's saying that, should a guy who's on a drug that makes, roughly 10% of the people who take it crazy, um, still be running the country? Or should he let Pence take a turn at it for a couple days? Um, there was also some merriment to be had because over the weekend he released a couple photos of him working hard while in the hospital, but they didn't realize that the photos were time coded and that they were all posed and taken at roughly, within a 10-minute span, even though, he was dressed slightly different. And anyway, it just all seems, if you're a fan of Trump, like, if you like Trump, the idea that he would bravely take himself outside to wave it is to show, love for his supporters, would seem like a brave thing. And if you don't like Trump, it seems like an asshole thing because he's, putting his driver and Secret Service agents at risk inside a closed SUV. Um, and, does it, but the question is, does this affect voters?
Well, there's two. Are you finished?
Yeah.
All right. So there's there's two issues. The first question is, does it affect voters? And I've been listening to two pundits, one fellow named Tim Pool that everyone's hearing about these days, and a Dr. Stephen Turley, who's a perennially optimistic conservative. And what they are saying, there was an article, they're quoting an article written by somebody else. I can't trace it back any further. And the article was that apparently the head of Britain and the head of Brazil got higher numbers after they got COVID. And the reason is it turns out that the average person has, not the average leftist liberal Democrat, but the average human has a little teeny bit of sympathy for people that are sick, and a bit of a sort of a, fight your way out of this, kind of a cheering for the underdog if the leader comes through it. So Trump might receive a couple of points in the election because of this, maybe. It doesn't work against the leader, though. There's no evidence of that. The second thing is, the president is doing exactly what he would be doing if he believed everything he's been saying all along. And that is that we can't let this virus destroy our country. And number one, here are things we know about it. We know that 99% of the people that get it survive.
98, but okay.
We know that there are certain targeted groups, the elderly, people with comorbidities, that could voluntarily quarantine themselves, keep themselves out of the general circulation. Some people think mask wearing is great. We know that we can all do that when we're around crowds. But the most important thing that the president is doing right now is saying, look, I'm on the antibody therapy, Regeneron. I believe it's called Regeneron.
It's the company, yeah, is Regeneron. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on remdesivir, which they've been working on since March. And I am on dexamethasone, which I believe we've been calling it the Oxford steroid. I
didn't know its name until today.
Yeah, I think that's the one that they started using in Britain, that Oxford was promoting. And it's meant to come in at the end of the, more towards the middle of the illness when you have respiratory difficulties.
Which he apparently did. His O2 levels had dropped to like 94% a couple times.
And apparently they don't really worry until it's below that.
Right.
But anyway, my fourth point is the point that Trump is trying to make, and that is, look, he's been trying to say for at least a month, especially when he made that announcement about the antibody treatment. He was trying to get across to the American people that we don't have to grind the United States to a halt over this, and that anything where you have a 98% chance of recovery plus very good, if not perfect, medications. You have a treatment. Doesn't work all the time. Maybe it works most of the time. But in circumstances like that, you shouldn't destroy the United States. Now, this depression that we're living through has caused us to go deeper into debt than we ever have, and we may not be able to come out of it. We've been carrying trillions of dollars of debt, but
for the first time in history, we just crossed 27 trillion.
Yeah, so it's more. It literally I believe the interest is more than we can pay off in a year, given our regular. In other words, we're in the sort of revolving credit card debt where you just keep going down, and what optimistic economists are saying is that, well, the debt goes away when you increase GNP. That, so long as you're making more money and the economy's thriving, you can start eating away at it. But it won't go away unless we're lucky and things really go well. And if we do what Biden says, and he says he's willing to lock the country down if the scientists tell him to,
Which it
then
won't.
we'll never, then, and I said this last week, then we'll never get out of it. So, so we have to take the president's cue. He's trying to set an example. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so I have a proposal. We know that if Biden wins, it's likely that within his first week as president, there will be some kind of national mask mandate. I don't know if it'll hit the whole country, but let's say if you're testing and your state is over 5% positive, the whole state is going to get put on masks, and which I'm okay with that. I think it will really knock down, if it's followed, it will really knock down the numbers of new cases, and it'll mean that we can open up more of the country faster, I think. But people are worried that it makes you look like a pussy and it makes you look like you're subject to tyranny. So my suggestion is that we have a national mask mandate, and every mask must have a dick drawn on it. All right? If everybody's mask has a dick on it, then the very truly most masculine of us, it will take a lot of masculinity to overcome having a dick drawn on your mask, on your face. And so we will see who the true men are, who can still look masculine, and women who with a dick drawn right over their mouth.
I've seen masks that I found acceptable. One is a mask that says "Keep America Great, Make America Great Again." Trump masks. I saw a woman with a mask that said, "This represents irrational fear." So there are a lot of things besides dicks that I would find acceptable. I don't know about your dick idea, but you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, Carol bought us a bunch of pretty floral masks, so when I go out, I'm generally wearing Pretty Flowers by Johnny Was, who's I guess a pretty famous designer, whose regular shit is expensive, but his pretty masks turn out to be affordable.
Well, that's very public-spirited of him.
And I guess I'll talk a little bit. I've done steroids. The first time I did them, I did Dianabol, which is a very early, very dirty steroid. Steroids come in there's a variety of them. Just there are dozens and dozens of them. And the earlier they were invented, the more they dirty you up with, like, they're hard on your liver and shit. And I just took one bottle of Dianabol, and people laughed at me at the gym because I took a month to use a bottle of Dianabol, while some people at the gym were taking a bottle a day. So I took a very mild dose, and I used it so I could work out really hard and recover faster. I worked out so hard that so little blood went to my brain that one time I showed up at the house of my steroid dealer and I forgot his name, which was awkward. And then I did a couple really teeny cycles of decadorabolin, which is an injectable. And I didn't get it, when I did the Deca because I was at war at I worked at the largest beer garden in the United States, a 5-acre bar in Boulder, Colorado, with a huge bouncer staff, where I was co-head bouncer with my girlfriend that I'd just broken up with. And there was a war between, friction between the bouncers who weren't on steroids and the bouncers who were. And my team was the ones who were not on steroids, but I decided to go on them so I would have an aggressive, I would have aggression to match the other side. And I did that for a while, and then I just said, fuck it. And I retreated, and I went and bounced and checked IDs at the gay bar. for a while, took a break from the so I didn't have serious side effects. I don't know if I'd have more hair left now if I hadn't done my little baby doses of steroids. I did not have psychosis beyond, my regular psychosis. Um,
I have known a few guys that went on those steroids, and very easy to die, very easy to lose your hair. One guy died. He was like 28 years old. Your heart just stops in the middle of the night. He had big muscles though, so it might have been worth it. But
Wait, yeah, go ahead. But then I want to talk about big muscles.
Go right ahead.
All right. So people today, I mean, there was an era where big muscles were more important than they are now. I mean, you can have big muscles now, and some people will think you're hotter than if you didn't have big muscles. But people can also think you're a weirdo, and also like 2/3 of America is chunky, and obviously you can hook up now, and not be ripped, right?
I don't know. I mean, I actually think people are more into fitness than they used to be. I don't remember it being quite like this. And people are trained. I meet so many people that are training obsessively.
But does it get them laid? I don't think it's connected to getting laid anymore as much as it was in the late 70s and in the 80s when, bodybuilding first moved out of the closet and into, public awareness. And Schwarzenegger became famous.
Oh, well, that kind of lifting is an elite kind of thing. I mean, when you're talking about guys that are that muscular, that are training
at that point it gets weird, and you're definitely in a weird subculture, and you're gonna, if you're a competitive level bodybuilder, you'll be, trying to hook up with competitive level women bodybuilders, and so you're in your own. At that point, you're at band camp. You're in just a whole different subgroup of everybody. But I'm just saying that, like, having 15.5-inch biceps in 1983, you'd wear a tight, like, polo shirt. That shit was worth something.
I don't know. I mean, we're getting onto a subject that I find interesting, and that is what actually does get you laid these days. I went to a bar. It was a fascinating experience. I went to a bar with, there had to have been about 1,000, kids. We're saying people over 21 so they could drink, but under 32 so they were sort of youngish. And I noticed three things. One, the girls were doing everything they could to look ugly.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, they were shaving their heads, they were putting bones through their noses, they had tattoos on their faces and necks. I mean, it was like these girls were, they looked like people from a Tim Burton movie. It was just like the idea that I would want to somehow be vulnerable and intimate with a person that looks like this, who might, drink my blood in the middle of the night after giving me a roofie. I don't know. They were tough-looking girls. And the other thing I found was that the guys were very much afraid. The young guys, nobody wanted to be a sexual harasser. Nobody wanted to be aggressive. And I was like, the old guy from the previous generation sitting around acting like it was the 70s. And whenever I looked over at a woman, the woman would look back at me like, speak to me. Don't be afraid. I'm alone here. And for some reason, I didn't. because maybe I was afraid too. But if I was to try to get a relationship now, I won't say laid because I do want a relationship when I do that. I would go back into these bars with lots of youngish people, and I'd be very aggressive. I'd treat it like the 70s. I'd go up to girls and say, "Hey, baby, and can I buy you a drink?" And they'd be so amazed that somebody was not afraid of them, that someone was kind of like, "Boy, this guy's bold," that I'd probably end up doing okay.
Okay. I think there is an anti-appearanceism at large in like American society, maybe. I don't know. I'm pulling this right out of my ass, having not thought about it at all. But the idea is that somebody who's putting their selves on themselves, who's made choices that that are perhaps pleasing to them rather than attempting to be pleasing um, to guys. Um, like my kid, she got a tattoo, and it's lovely. It's her favorite embroidered figure from uh, a beadworked tray or box from I want to say 17th century. It's a little lady in 17th century dress, and it's very charming. But it's for her. I mean, people can admire it, but she chose something that, I mean, I think that's, I feel like some people just do a really bad job of choosing tattoos. She took years to really settle on one. She'd been threatening to get one for years, but hadn't found an image she liked until this one. I think other people are more haphazard with their tattoos, but I think when people put themselves on themselves and put themselves out there via social media, it's saying, I'm not just what I look like. I'm, if you want to be with me or be my friend, there's plenty of information about me available, and besides, how hot I look, I would guess is the deal.
Well, if we haven't talked about it, I hate tattoos. I don't think there's any. Whenever I say this, people say, "But what about really nice tattoos?" that's that's like saying, I'm covering my body with shit. But what if it's a really nice looking piece of shit? No, nothing. Thank God I'm from an era when I still remember that people respected the human body. Um, I I think that nothing compares with the bodies that God gave us in their pristine state, and I actually see wisdom in the Jewish religion. I think we've talked about this because the Jewish religion does prohibits the wearing of tattoos, and it goes back to um, God or the Jewish religion trying to get people to see themselves as holy, as having a little piece of God within them, and it just has to do with respect of your I don't know, your that little piece of divinity that you have. So I'm very much against tattoos. I think they look terrible. Even the finest tattoo, I think, looks ridiculous. Um, and as far as not caring how looks go, I don't think that's going away. If anything, I think people have more access to plastic surgery and plastic surgery that works better today, where you don't come out looking like a monster. They can actually do subtler and subtler work to you so that I think people are looking better than they did. I mean, the raw package before it's been desecrated of people looks pretty good these days. So I don't think the need to be attracted to your lover has gone away. I don't think that's going away.
So
Anyway,
I kind of agree with you about, well, I don't love tattoos, but I think I'm a product I think it's partly because I'm an old guy. Um, but I like seeing well done tattoos, photorealistic tattoos.
yeah, I mean there are beautiful tattoos. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
I don't like haphazard tattoos, and I'm invested in the way I am. Like, I get mad when people succeed in the world because they're super good looking, because I've never had that option. Um, but as somebody who's spent, many thousands of hours, working out, um, I hate when people are able to. I mean, this is a prejudice of mine, and it's not something that I should be proud of, but it's a thing I have, that people can proudly own their bodies even though they don't work out. I'm like, fuck you. I've wasted so much of my life working out, and then you're going to go ahead and be happy with your unworked out body, and then you're going to decorate it with tattoos. It's like, fuck you. I resent it as the way I resent like seeing a pretty lady who's succeeding as a producer in the entertainment industry, driving an $85,000 Audi SUV because she sold a show to Netflix, because she does well in a pitch room, because she's attractive. It's like, come on. But all that's kind of, I mean, the judge, my shitty judgments are as much a judgment on me as they are on other people.
Well, I mean, are you done?
Yeah, well, just one. I think that, yeah, that body modification, as the technology gets better, will become more and more extreme. I've read 2 science fiction novels / stories where in the future, when a teen is really rebellious, instead of going goth, the teen goes dinosaur and just gets genetically tweaked. So your bad teen is now a little T-Rex stomping around, which that's not going to happen in the near future, but you get the idea.
This morning, I was teaching one of my non-masked art classes, and all the young people, I've had to endure this conversation maybe 10 times since I've been teaching young people. They're all talking about how they'd love to amputate their arms or legs and get them replaced with mechanical arms or legs that are far more powerful, have maybe weapons attachments, get the internet, and bionic things like from the Terminator. So young people, I found today, there are 2 things. They're all at peace with having a very high-tech body part installed voluntarily or because they have to, because they're in an accident, and they all have a plan when the zombies attack. And young people are only somewhat clear that there's no such thing as a zombie. I wouldn't say that they don't really believe. I can't say they don't completely disbelieve in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, well, The Walking Dead has just announced its 2nd spin-off. The original Walking Dead's still going after like 8 or 9 years. And then its first spin-off is I don't know, probably in its 5th season. Now they got yet another one, which I don't watch it very much. I've watched a couple episodes, and they're fucking tedious, because it's a fallen world, so there's nothing cool left. It's a shitty future, though easy to produce, because it's a shit future. But zombies are so fucking boring. They do just basically one thing: stumble towards you. If I'm zombies, that when you die and become a zombie, I want you to become 3 times as competent and sophisticated as a still living human. I want packs of zombies to be like the Lost Generation in Paris in the 1920s, with cigarette holders, and a lot of ennui.
So the director just broke in with the very serious point that the Durham investigation may be investigating the Hillary Clinton Foundation. That's been a source of great irritation to me and to Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch and everybody else, because the Durham report has been, for some reason, they don't seem to be willing to release anything from their report. And nobody can figure out why, because if he does find that Joe Biden was involved in wild illegal activities, I would like to know before November 3rd election day. And at this point, it's October the 4th, and I don't...
29 days to go.
Yeah, I don't know if Durham's going to release the report. I feel, as I've been trying to convince Rick for the past 4 years now, that the Obama-Biden administration, with some Clinton, turned the country basically into a police state. They took over, used the FBI, used the CIA, used the IRS to harass their political opponents every way imaginable. And I think that, Rick will be the last person on earth to admit it, but the facts are dripping out drop by drop. It's getting worse and worse. There are more and more people involved. They're tracing it back to the Oval Office. So all these things are extremely disturbing, especially when you consider that they're not over. Biden may get back into office and finish the job. But the fact that Durham won't release the report doesn't make me feel like justice is being served. It just makes me feel like this is insane. This is literally insane. Because hang on. If he waits until after the election, then he's not helping the American public. That you could say, well, if he releases it in October, then it's just an October surprise to help Trump. But if he doesn't release it before the election, then he's helping Biden. Either way, he's helping somebody. So my recommendation is just come out with the truth. Just say this is what happened. You can make your own decision, American people.
All right, I have a bunch of points. One is we should probably explain what the Durham report is. It's a Republican.
Hang on while you talk, I'm going to turn the fan down. Goodbye.
Okay, it's a Republican-led investigation into, I don't know, the nefarious activities of I don't know, the Biden-Obama administration, and everybody on my side thinks that the Durham report isn't being released because they didn't find anything.
That's a lie. I didn't hear what you said, Rick. You're saying the Durham report is a bunch of
people
lies.
on my side we have the same. We're wondering the same thing. Where there's Barr and commissioned this investigation into Democrat leadership wrongdoing, and it hasn't been released. And there are 4 weeks of voting to go. 2.5% of the vote is already in, and we figure that Durham hasn't released a report because it doesn't contain anything juicy. that obviously he'd release it if it were super incriminating, but maybe it's not.
Well, I mean, if it isn't incriminating, he should release that anyway, because after November the 3rd, if Biden gets elected, he's going to shut down. He'll have the authority to shut it down. And so if Durham wants his report to be heard, there's no reason not to release it unless he secretly hopes that Biden wins and he's working for the deep state.
Yeah, well, okay, so I've got a couple recommendations. One is pertinent and one isn't. Let me go with the one that doesn't pertain.
Hang on 1 second. I got to turn the fan back on.
Okay, so let me recommend on Netflix My Octopus Teacher, which is
couple recommendations. Go ahead.
My Octopus Teacher on Netflix, which is this documentary on a love story between a man and an octopus. People should know that octopuses are like the Einsteins of the sea. They have 9 brains, the central one and then one in each arm, and they are fantastically smart.
Gotcha.
And also fucked over by evolution, because evolution only lets them live for 2 years, because they've got that pump out a bunch of babies model that possums have. There's the shitty animal victim of predator model, where possums only live for like 2 to 3 years if they're lucky, but in that time they spit out like 100 fucking babies, because they're very vulnerable to predators. So they never evolve the ability to live for a long time, because they get eaten before they can live a long time. Kind of ditto for octopuses, except that octopuses also evolved super powerful brains. So it's fucking tragic that they figure out the world just in time to die with their fucking genius brains. But anyway, My Octopus Teacher is about a guy who just spent all day, every day underwater hanging out with this octopus, and they came to really like each other, and it's really cool. It looks great. It's fucking super crazy, fascinating, everything that an octopus can do. And it's fucking, I mean, and it's pretty, and it's just, anyway, it's nuts. So that, and then you can watch the Comey Rule on HBO, which is a 4-hour, 2-night deal. And it explains everything that happened, beginning with Russia and Hillary and the emails, and moving on to Comey getting fired from Comey's point of view. And if you are a conservative, you're going to be skeptical about everything, but at least it gives you a narrative framework where you can, if I were a conservative watching it, I'd be like, yeah, I don't think that's how it happened. And then but it gives you a thing where you can pause it and go look shit up. As a liberal, I tend to buy his version of shit, and it presents how he and the FBI kept being put in all these uncomfortable boxes where every choice they had was terrible and filled with peril for the country because of the Russian fucking around with everything. And just the politics of everything. So you could do worse than to watch it and then, whichever way you lean politically, look up the shit that the alternate points of view.
All right. Well, I mean, we've gone over this, and briefly, the one thing that has never been answered by Comey or anybody else is what was line 1? Okay, line 1 is, why are we trying to put spies in Trump's campaign? What is the reason for this? And the reason given by the Senate by the House Intelligence Committee was the dossier. Adam Schiff actually had the entire dossier read into the the House hearings, and the
now
dossier.
I'm sad because we're talking about this shit again. But
well, it's your fault. It turns out that given that the dossier was the official reason given by the Democrats in the House Intelligence Committee, it's my duty to point out that the dossier was written by a Russian spy, identified by the FBI as a Russian spy, that was paid cash to do it by the Clinton campaign. So that was
first
why
the Republicans and then Clinton. But okay.
No, not the Republicans.
I know it was two different fucking reports, but
No. The Republicans had nothing to do with the dossier, Rick. Okay? What you're confusing...
Oh, fuck, I don't want to fight about this. It doesn't matter anymore. We got 29 days. Nobody gives a shit about it.
Don't filibuster. What you're confused about is that Fusion GPS was an opposition research company, sometimes used by Republicans and Democrats. The Clinton campaign hired Fusion GPS to find opposition research about Trump. But instead, what they did was they gave money to a British spy named Christopher Steele, who hired a Russian spy, whose name I can actually look up if I have time. And this Russian spy, working for Russia at the time, wrote a report about Trump, saying that a lot of dirty details, a lot of that essentially Trump was working for Russia. This report was then given to the FBI. Comey admitted this week that he had no idea whether it was true or not. He just said that it was true, but he didn't have any, he had done virtually no research on it. He just took the report, signed that it was true, that it was verified, that's the word, signed it, gave it to a court run by Democrats called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Agency, or court, and they gave the FBI permission to spy on the Trump campaign, which is basically the fascist world that Rick wants to live in. Rick feels that this is the way he wants things to be done. He would like it.
It's better than the current version of the way shit's going.
No, it isn't, Rick, because my side doesn't use the FBI and the IRS to harass its political opponents. My side doesn't try to frame its political opponents with lies. My side doesn't collude with Russian intelligence, as has been proven of your side. So we have two evidences of collusion with Russians. The first is that Hillary Clinton, through two stops, ultimately hired Russian intelligence to write up lies about Trump that she used to get the FBI to harass Trump's campaign. And then Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, received $3.5 million to his company directly from the mayor of Russia, the mayor of Russia's wife, who is a notorious corrupt oligarch. So we have two Russian connections proven to your side, which you're not the slightest bit ashamed of, even though these things are completely verified. And you have zero proof whatsoever that Trump did anything with the Russians.
All right, so
and yet for 4 years you've been telling me that Trump is mixed up with the Russians, and it all comes out that your side is mixed up with the Russians and is simply lying to deflect.
Okay, all right, so
to deflect.
I want to move on from this. Let me just, if I can, I just want to say that I believe, and I don't want to argue this shit again because it bores our people because we've done it so many times. That I believe your narrative is a garbage narrative, and
but you can't prove it. You've never been able to explain why. What have I said that's not true?
No, I can, but I'm not gonna right now. And you can say, well, no, I can't. Just go ahead, say I can't for the sake of moving on. I fucking
You
can,
can't.
but I don't want to.
You
It
can't.
makes for a boring show because we've done it a million times. Um, just watch Agents of Chaos and the Comey Rule on HBO if you can steal somebody's HBO pass, and it gives you good background for further research.